We open it up here, and you can see how thick it is. Nobody's going to break into that too easily. Not without getting some big torch, I'll tell you that. And then inside, and I have a closet full of mistakes. You just learn from it and don't do it again.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's better to learn with others' mistakes. So, and we can show all
It's
this.
much cheaper.
Yes, it's much cheaper and much smarter.
Much smarter, yeah.
Hello everybody, this is a War Story video blog. I am Alex, and here is Thomas Wittmann, and here we are in Thomas Wittmann office, and now we have chance to see Thomas Wittmann safe.
That is correct. I don't think that I've ever shown my safe on any videos, but Alex, he talked me into it because he says it's Christmas time and maybe you could all do some last minute shopping. But anyhow, I thought you might like to see how I try to organize my inventory, and I'll show you a few daggers too. That's always fun. So Prost. We'll go inside of the safe and see what it looks like. We have a big, this is a big bank safe. This safe I bought about 30 years ago from a bank that they were knocking down, and I was able to get it down in my cellar with the help of about 50 men, but we got it down here, and it works very, very good. We open it up here, and you can see how thick it is. Nobody's going to break into that too easily. Not without getting some big torch, I'll tell you that. And then inside, if you come in, I try to organize my dagger inventory. It's a very small area, so you'll have to bear with us a little bit, but I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah, exactly.
When you come in, I have my daggers separated into different areas, and the pieces from here on up are all the pieces that collectors are buying on time. They're making payments. I pray for the day that it's all paid for. I don't know when that'll ever happen, but that's part of the business. I give a 90-day layaway if people want to take advantage of that. And I think it's good because, let's face it, these things are expensive, and not everybody is able to handle a $1,200 bill just like that, or $2,000 or whatever it is. So I think it's a good service that we offer, and as you can see, a lot of people they take advantage of it. So this is what we call the hold bin up here, and then the second row of things are all different types of army daggers, and there's lots of nice things here. I'll just pull something out. I keep them by stock number so that I can find them. But here we have just a regular army dagger. It's nothing special. One of hundreds of thousands that were made, but it does have the original portapee, and the grip is nice. You can see how the grip is still later, where the portapee had covered it over the years. You know, the celluloid turns color. The older it is, the darker it gets, and then it has a nice blade made by the E&F Horster Company. And daggers like this, the regular ones, you can buy in the $600, $700, $800 area. I don't know whether there's anything that's nicer that I could show you that you might like a little better. Let's see. This is a piece by Herder, And what's interesting about it, it has a dedication on the back of the crossguard. And when you see this kind of thing with all the information that's there, you have the ability to possibly do research on the man that originally owned it. So you could make a whole dossier on the man and then maybe get the medals that he won and things like that. So these kind of daggers are fun to collect, and it has the Herder trademark, which we don't see too often on Army daggers, and a nice blade. But you can find Army daggers that have double etched blades, or they have presentations on the blades, and all of these things are a factor in the value of them. So we have a lot of Army daggers. They're probably the most common daggers that we see. And then below this, I have my second model Luftwaffe daggers, and they're always pleasing to look at. The design is really nice, and like this one is really nice. Look how dark the celluloid grip has become.
It's like pumpkin color.
Like pumpkin, yeah. I don't know whether it's it's the same color on the reverse too. It's a very nice piece. This one is made by Horster, and it has the porta-pee on it too. But you can buy most Luftwaffe daggers are from about $700 to $1,100 or $1,200, depending on how much pizzazz they have. But they're something that's usually affordable for most collectors. I'll show you one that's a little abnormal. This is what collectors have called a Luftwaffe funeral dagger, which is really a stupid term. I mean, we can't really seriously believe that a Luftwaffe officer would buy a dagger just to go to a funeral. Although maybe if there were Luftwaffe funeral directors, maybe they might have one. But what this is they're always by one maker, Robert Klass, and we think that somewhere along the line, one of the celluloid salesmen during the time went into Klass and said, "Look, I've got all this black celluloid I don't know what to do with, and I'll sell it to you cheap." And Klass bought the celluloid, and usually when you see these, the grip will be painted white. But over the years, the white came off, or collectors saw it was black underneath and took the white off. And like anything in any kind of hobby, if there's a term put to it that says what it is, collectors like to buy it. If nobody knows what it is, why should I buy it? So dealers make up these terms. I'm embarrassed to say, but they call this a funeral dagger, and it is a legitimate variation, and they sell for quite a bit of money, about $3,000. So it's a good thing to collect as an investment. And then you also, Luftwaffe daggers will have dedications sometimes on the scabbard or the crossguard, and sometimes they'll have dedications on the blade, and they also make double etched blades, and you can spend a lot of money on a Luftwaffe dagger, but they're exceptionally beautiful. The design is nice. And then below the Luftwaffe daggers, we have a whole slew of nice naval daggers. And the naval daggers, the Third Reich type, they have the Nazi pommel. Most of them have an engraved scabbard. Sometimes you'll see a hammered scabbard. This one is engraved. And when they were new, all of this was covered with a gold plate, a gilt finish. But as years go by, it tends to wear off. And then most of them will have an etched blade. See, it has a nautical scene of an anchor with sea plants around it. And they're really quite lovely, especially if you can find one with a nice blade like this one is. I like Navy daggers myself. I have a lot of them in my personal collection. This one was made by Eichhorn, and that trademark would put the vintage of the dagger, about 1941. But see how nice that blade is, and so that's a pretty much standard type of naval dagger. And then you'll see the see if I can find one with a hammered scabbard. Well, whatever you're looking for. Oh, here we go. This is a piece with a hammered scabbard. See how the scabbard is all peened? And you don't see as many hammered scabbards because they were more costly than the engraved scabbard. This one is particularly nice. There's no dents. Grip is beautiful. Nice pommel. Let's see, this is made by WKC, who was a big producer. And also with a nice nautical scenes on the blade. Very nice piece. So then, and sometimes you'll run into daggers that were made during the Kaiser's time. This is one, and this is another. The differences are the pommel is in the shape of the Imperial crown, because the Kaiser was in charge of the Navy, and the cross guards are a little different than the Nazi period. They have what we call capstan ends. A capstan is the piling that you would find on a dock that the rope would be put around. And a lot of times these Imperial daggers will have ivory grips, which both of these are ivory grips. And the reason for that was that at that time, Germany had colonies in Africa, so they had access to a lot of ivory. And what you also see on many of these are beautiful Damascus blades. I think both of these are Damascus blades. Yeah, they are. And we see quite a bit of Damascus blades on Imperial pieces because at that time there were more Damascus smiths working than there were during the Third Reich time. And as you know, it was a very tedious time period to make a Damascus blade. So they were fairly costly then, but they were much, much more costly during the Third Reich time because, like I say, there weren't as many people producing them. So you see those kind of things. And then down below that, we have a lot of Red Cross pieces. These are the officer pieces with the nice orange grips. They're usually in pretty nice condition because I don't think they were worn too much. The one thing you got to be careful with Red Cross is a lot of times the cross guard is broken, and that's because the material that they were made out of was pot metal, and they were very brittle. So when you have a Red Cross dagger, you have to be very careful with it, because if you look, when you put them in, watch the two cross guards, they just about clear the scabbard. So a lot of people they ram it in, and the cross guard catches on the throat, and bink! The next thing you know, you can find the next trash can up the street and throw your dagger away because you'll never find a replacement cross guard. There are none. There's none around. So that's the one thing you have to be careful with. This one's got the original doctor's initials on the back. Sometimes you'll see that, KR. That's not enough to research anybody, but it makes the dagger just a little more interesting than a normal one. So
Once I bought a dagger of this type of dagger, Officer Red Cross, and I ship it home with myself in luggage, in suitcase, and on TSA control.
Yeah.
It's a control before the flight.
Yeah, it opens everything up.
They open the cases with daggers, and they
I know
just
what you're going to say.
yes, and they put it outside of the case, and other dagger or bayonets drop on the top. Yeah, and they broke it. Yeah,
See, this is just what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It was too bad. Makes me sad, and
well, it is
lost
because
money.
If you think that the dagger survived the war, it survived the time the veteran had it in his house. It survived all the time you bought it, and then some stupid bureaucrat breaks it.
Yeah, just drop it and
careless stuff. Well, that's a sad story. I don't like that story. No. But
it happens, and it's our risks.
Yeah, it's our risk. Yeah. Well, this is why you have to take extra care, even though you think, oh, it's silly. This stuff's all steel. Nothing's going to. Extra care. Treat it like it's jewelry, like your wife's jewelry, for that matter. Because even though the things look like they're not breakable, they can be broken very easily. The same is true of the swastika wreath on an army dagger. I don't know how many of those over the years I've seen that's broken off, and it was just due to some carelessness along the way. Then down lower we have RAD pieces. And these are always nice. They're so big and heavy and manly. I mean, they're, beautiful things. This is an early one, and all the fittings are solid nickel. The paint's original on this one, and it's really in great shape. And then they used stag from an antler to make the grip plates. They're really beautiful things, and they have this great big blade, like a Bowie blade, and it has the motto of the organization, Arbeit Delt. It means work ennobles. In other words, we want you to work hard. That's what it was for. So they're nice daggers, and we see quite a few of them. And the ones that are beat up, what you see quite a few that are beat up, are pretty reasonably priced. Sometimes you can buy them for $500 or $600. But when you find the real nice ones like this, they start to get a little expensive. But after all, if you're only going to buy one, why not buy the best? So that's what I always say with daggers. You'll be glad you did. So we have a lot of RADs, and here's one here that. This one's interesting because you'll see that the stag grip goes all the way around here. I'll show you the other one so you can see what I'm talking about. See how the stag stops here and it goes all the way around here? Well, when they first made them, Eichhorn was the first producer of them. They needed a large piece of stag to make this. So probably somebody in the factory said, look, Herr Eichhorn, if we just stop putting the stag to go over this part, we can use much thinner stag and save money. And he said, you are a smart person. I give you raise.
Yeah. But actually, when Paul Kasberg designed this type of hewer, he designed it with full stack, and we can see the pictures of the designer with exactly the same style.
Right. That's right, exactly right. And then over here we have a lot of the Red Cross enlisted men's, and these have the same problem as the officer. You have to be careful with the cross guard, or you can break it. And then they have these great sawback blades on them, and which is really kind of silly. This one, what somebody did is put a tip on it.
You don't like screw?
Yeah. It looks like a screwdriver. That's not the way they should be. I'll show you the way they should be. See, remember how that one was? See, this is much more blunted. That's the way they're supposed to look. And the reason they were blunted was because the Red Cross was part of the Geneva Conference. And with the Geneva Conference, if you were medical personnel, you weren't supposed to be carrying something that was a weapon. So they thought by blunting the tip, this is no longer a weapon. Of course, they forgot to look at the big saw back here that would really rip your face open. But the purpose of that was only symbolic. It was to symbolize the ability of a Red Cross man to be able to cut a splint. In case you broke your arm, you know what a splint is, so he could make that in the field. So that's what that's for. But I still wouldn't want to be in the back of an alley with somebody heading towards me with one of these things. The rest of this is mostly bayonets, and now there's some RAD leaders, a number of them. These are very beautiful daggers, just elegant, with a silvered hilt and the noble beak. The grip plates are celluloid, but they look like ivory, and they're really, really pretty. And the scabbards,
really nice.
and yeah, it's this is an exceptionally nice example, and a beautiful, beautiful blade. Just really nice things. This was made by the WKC firm. But when they get in this condition, they get pretty expensive. This is $3,000. But you're paying for the quality and the condition of it. So if you can afford the best, that's what you should buy. If you like something that looks like it went through the war, well, then you can get a cheaper one, that's for sure.
Yeah, prices starts maybe from 800, from really worn and with a
that's right.
big kiss of the time.
That's right. Let's see if I have one that's not in as good a condition. Most of these look pretty nice. Well, this one's not as nice as the one I just showed you. It's still pretty nice though. See, it has a little crack in there.
Mm-hmm.
See, a crack like that. Oops, that's about a $400 hit there. That little crack.
Yeah.
And the blade is another blade is good on it. This is an Acorn.
It cost like a crack on a brand new BMW, or
That's exactly. That's a good comparison. I got a lot of different kinds of combat bayonets and things like that, fighting knives, and I like that kind of stuff too. We have to carry everything so that everybody's happy. And then in this upper part here, these are plain and etched dress bayonets, and if you haven't seen etches, I'll try to find one here to show you how beautiful they can be. Let's see. It looks like Alex went through here and bought all my etched bayonets.
yeah, it was much more.
Yeah. Let's see here. Here's something here. This is a Luftwaffe bayonet. And you say, well, how do you know it's a Luftwaffe bayonet? Well, usually the Luftwaffe bayonets will have brown scabbards instead of black scabbards. And what's nice about this one, this is a difficult etch to find. It was only made by the Holler firm, and it shows a biplane right in the middle between the clouds. Very nice thing in memory of my service time. So the man that bought this was probably a pilot or an observer, and he wanted something nice to remember his time in the Luftwaffe. And a lot of these bayonets were sold before the war started, because little did these guys know they were going back in again the next year. They thought they were retired, but they weren't. But they were a nice keepsake. Boy, Alex, you did get a lot of my etched bayonets.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I spent here maybe how many hours?
Yeah.
Maybe 12 or 18 hours.
Like that. Yeah. Yeah.
In this safe. I love your safe. It was much more of them.
This is a Luftwaffe Type 2, and on this configuration. It has the national Wehrmacht eagle on one side of the blade, and on the other side of the blade is an early droop tail Luftwaffe. Now we know this was probably bought before the war started because of the early droop tail eagle. This is about 37 or so, and then it has in memory of my service time, and again a brown frog. So, but aren't they pretty? I mean, the etching is just, you have to take just a minute to talk to you about etching. This was all done with acid. A lot of people, they call them engraved bayonets. They were not engraved. This metal was never engraved. It was all done with an acid etching process. And what they would do would they'd make a template with the designs on it, and the areas that were not to be eaten by the acid were covered with wax, and acid will not penetrate wax. And the ones that had the areas that were open was where the acid penetrated. So they were so good at this. The Germans had been doing this since the 14 and 1500s with armor, that they were able to make these exquisite, intricate designs. And you even look at them through a loop. I mean, with all the little feathers and the eyes and the birds and all, it's just amazing what they could achieve just through the acid eating process. So these are fun to own. So these are SA daggers, and I have a lot of them. There were over 3 million SA daggers made, so we see a lot of them because a lot of veterans brought them back. And but you can't just, years ago we just say, it's only an SA, who cares? And a lot of times you'd see, I remember shows years ago, you'd see a guy with 30 SAs in his showcase, and you wouldn't even bother to look at them. You'd just, who cares? But as you know, today there's essays with Rome inscriptions, there's essays that are personalized, there's essays with dedications, and then some that still have all the anodizing on the scabbard, which is just beautiful to look at. Some of the trademarks, there's people there that just collect essays because they love the beauty of the trademarks, because they're terrific to look at. So essays are very popular today, and we're selling more essays today than we ever did. It's people have really come on to them. Another thing, a guy, Dr. McAviney, I think his name is, he designed something called the Mexar scale. And what that is a rating of maker marks. And he made this scale going from 1 to 10, 10 being the rarest, of all the maker marks on SA daggers. And what he did, he took SA daggers that were listed for the last 50 years. He found auctions, catalogs, dealers lists, and he compared the number of times that a certain maker would come up. And that's how he derived the 1 through 10 scale. So you could have what you think is a regular SA dagger, only to find out that the maker mark you have is a 10 on the scale, and it might be worth 2 or 3 times what you thought the dagger was worth just because of the logo. So there's a lot more to essays than what we used to think. I'll show you one here that I think is a beautiful dagger.
And this one is already sold.
This one's already sold. I only had it for sale for 1 day. But this dagger comes from Suhl, S-U-H-L. And Suhl was where they made the beautiful hunting rifles in Germany. And there were 3 producers in Suhl that were asked by Rome to contribute to the production of SA daggers in 1933, and they agreed to do that. The 3 producers were Wilhelm Kober, J.P. Sauer, and Haenel. And all 3 of those producers made handguns and rifles also. but it was easy to gear up to making daggers because it was somewhat related. And what you'll find on Suhl produced daggers of those three makers, they're all identical except for the logo on the blade. All the parts are the same, the grips that are the same, and the grips, incidentally, are always made out of walnut, which, guess what rifle stocks are made out of? That's it, walnut. So they had that material on hand. So the result was you get these beautiful walnut stocks like this one has. They normally have really nice grain in them, really beautiful. And because they were gun makers, they took extra time to fit everything. Look how beautiful those cross guards fit that grip. I mean, it's just fantastic. And then the scabbard, it had the what we call anodizing, which is just it's a bluing process that produced this beautiful purple copper color. And on this dagger, all of the anodizing is still there, which is pretty rare to see. It has nickel fittings that match the cross guards, and then the early short hanger. And then to add to the fun of this dagger, you take it out. It has a beautiful blade, alles für Deutschland. But collectors, that's not all. Ta-da! It's a full Rome dedication with the Hainel trademark. It's the only full Rome Hainel I've ever seen. I had a J.P. Sauer once, which looked the same. As I tell you, they were the daggers were the same except for the logo. But that's really a very, very rare find, and quite a beautiful dagger too, because we all love that trademark. Isn't that trademark terrific?
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, it's a nice thing. Here's one here too that we just showed you. We just showed you what the full Rome inscription looks like. This dagger, I think it looks like an EPS. No, it's an Eichhorn. This is an Eichhorn. It has a nice blade on the obverse. And then on the reverse, see what they did there?
Yeah, it's hard to film, but we can see.
Yeah. What they did was instead of grinding the whole inscription off like you were ordered to do, this person just had the Rome signature taken off and then repolished the area where the signature was. So that worked. It was good enough.
It was like lazy Rome.
Lazy Rome. That's what I used to call them, lazy Romes. I once had a dagger like this that where the Roman signature was taken off, a skull was engraved into that spot. Ooh, that was gruesome.
Yeah. So
I thought, well, this guy was not a Rome enthusiast. Yeah, these are things that we see too that once the RZM took into effect after about 1937, 1938, the dagger manufacturers cheapened the process, and the cross guards now are nickel plated instead of solid nickel, and they use these aluminum cross guards instead of nickel cross guards. And then the anodizing process was expensive to do, so they just painted the scabbards brown. So this is a real nice example of an RZM type piece. Beautiful blade. The blades aren't the same quality as the earlier blades, but they're still pretty nice. Still pretty nice. And this one was made by the Carl Eichhorn firm. Or no, I'm sorry. This is a special one. This was made by Boker. Bokcker, and their logo was this silly looking ostrich, and because this is an RZM one, they used the ostrich with the RZM mark. This is the only one like this that I've ever seen, it's really, really an interesting dagger. Some people just collect transitional pieces where they have the logo and the RZM together. So this is one that you'll never find. First one I ever saw. Probably the last one I'll ever see.
And one more interesting thing here was late one with the steel grips, with the steel cross guards.
Yeah, the steel cross guards.
Really like it. And
this is an unissued piece.
Yeah.
We used to think that Helbig was the only one that made the steel cross guards, but I'm not so sure that's the case. What they also did too, you can tell these are steel because they're magnetic. No other cross guards are ever magnetic, only the daggers produced by this maker. They're also a little bit fatter than normal cross guards.
It's like more square.
Yeah.
And I'd like it, really.
But this one is in magnificent, unissued condition, together with the hanger, too. And it has the RZM ticket that's riveted to it. And then on the reverse of it, it's stamped M773, which when you look, can you camera see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at the dagger, you see the RZM matches the issue tag.
And typical for this type of daggers, for this maker, is a light etching.
Very light etch. Very light etch. You'll notice that on the motto is lightly etched too. That's what they did. What I'm always kind of shocked at when you come across a dagger like this, it still has the factory tag on it. You know, you would think, you know how people are, these veterans, they find this thing and the first thing you do is tear off all the labels and the bag, and so it's almost a miracle that any of these unissued daggers with these tags still remain. But this is one, and fortunately it's never been abused. It's a real beauty. So you won't see that very often.
Yeah.
Won't see it often at all.
That's why I put it aside.
No,
that's why I put it aside. Yeah.
Oh, there goes my tag. I was just enjoying it too. So, anyhow, then below the SAs, we have NSKK daggers, which are pretty much the same, except that the scabbards are painted black. I think you collectors know about that. And this one has a nice grip. Don't you like that? That's pretty.
Yeah, really nice.
It's really a pretty grip. It's made by Dick. They made some nice things. And then you have the chained versions of NSKKs. Here's one that's not too bad. The chain version were worn by officers of the NSKK, and they first started making them in 1938. They're exactly the same dagger as the EM version, just have the eyelets and the ramp for the chain. And the chains are alternating Sunwheel swastikas and NSKK eagles, and they connect to a clip with an acorn positioned between two leaves. And then the center ramp on the long side of the chain is that special runic symbol that was used by the NSKK. And then usually they'll be marked on the back, with this NSKK Musterschutz and an RZM mark that's usually 5-8.
But not often we can see this small stamp.
No. That's this is a good 100% textbook piece is what you like to see. You got to be careful with NSKK chain daggers too, because they do reproduce the chains. and you don't want to get home after spending $2,000 or $3,000 and find out all you did was buy an NSKK jet dagger with a fake chain. That's not fun at all. So you got to be careful.
Usually fake daggers cost 2,000-3,000, two and a half.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like half price of original.
Yeah, this is it. So, and then there's lots of other things. I mean, everybody loves. Oops, there goes my cigar. But these are. This is a government official dagger. This is a diplomat dagger. And the difference between them is the fact that on the government official, the crossguard bird looks in the same direction as the bird on the pommel top. And on the diplomat, the crossguard bird looks the opposite direction from the eagle. And one thing I noticed too is that the wreath on the swastikas, the wreath on the diplomats is normally larger than the wreath on the government official. I see that a lot. Even though these were both made by Alcozo. So that's something to... One thing with Alcozo daggers too, that is a nice thing to know. There's a little sleeve here that comes out of the eyelet. See that sleeve, that little tiny sleeve? Mm-hmm. That's very, very important. All Alcozo government officials or diplomats have to have that sleeve. You'll see it also on the government official piece. That's very important. If it doesn't have the sleeve, either the scabbard was changed, or maybe the dagger's not right. But if it's an Alcozo piece, you want to see that. Just a little thing that can really keep you out of trouble sometimes. You'll still get into trouble, but this will help you anyhow.
Yeah.
And there's I always liked Postal daggers. I think they're great looking daggers. They're all nickel fittings with a beautiful wood grip and the Postal eagle in the grip and a nice chain. The chains are always marked on the back it's in the casting, DRGM. If your chain clip does not have that on there, it's not correct. Somebody replaced it. And then what you normally see, not all the time, but normally you'll see DRP marked on one of the undersigns of the crossguard, and then you'll also see a serial number on the other crossguard. And they were only made by Paul Weiersberg. No other firm made them. And a lot of times they have really beautiful blades. Look how great that blade is. Beautiful. And then on the other side is the Paul Weiersberg. Isn't that a nice thing?
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's a beautiful piece. And a lot of times the Postals will be in good condition because they weren't worn very much. And there aren't a lot of them around either.
But a lot of them with repainted scabbards because this chain damage.
You find them all original and in this kind of condition is really good. And then you see these. This is a second model railway dagger. This was produced by Eichhorn.
There's aluminum one.
Aluminum, yeah. Mm-hmm. And whenever you see an Eichhorn railway crossguard, you want to see this tiny little flaw here that's right next to the wheel. Mm-hmm. Can you see that in the camera? Very, very important. You want to see that if it's Eichhorn. This one is an Eichhorn, you can say. And with the aluminum type, with aluminum, can't pronounce the word, there's no throat. The throat was just bent over metal by the factory. That's how they did it. You'll see later or earlier ones that have the regular throat with a screw holding it. So like a lot of daggers that were a certain type, you'll still see variations of the same type. So you have to kind of study all of them so you don't get in trouble.
In this trip, I bought Army dagger model
Yes.
1935, without throat on the scabbard.
Without what?
Without throat on the scabbards.
No throat. Yeah.
Yes, and icon too, and
Yeah.
full aluminum one, very rare.
And it was bent over.
Yes.
That is a very rare thing.
Yeah, only 6 of them known, probably 6 or 10.
Oh, there's not many around.
Yeah.
I think Eichhorn was experimenting with aluminum to see if they could make it worthwhile. I once had a aluminum RAD officer. The whole piece was aluminum, the scabbard and everything, made by Eichhorn too. So they were experimenting with it, but apparently it never worked out for them because they didn't do too many of them.
Hitler Youth Leader, they also did full aluminum too.
Yes, only Eichhorn did that.
Yeah.
And not all of them, but a lot of them will be aluminum. I think we may have one of them here. Here it is right here. I thought I had one, yeah. This is it's not in really good condition, but this is an aluminum Eichhorn Hitler Youth Leader. It's marked 766. And if you feel the scabbard, it feels like air. It hardly weighs anything. And there is no throat either. They made it look like there's a throat, but it's part of the fitting, you know. And then the eagle, which is special to Eichhorn, that's different from the Horster eagle. These daggers are pretty rare. They're pretty rare. And if you find them in super condition, they're really expensive.
Yeah, it costs a lot.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's easy to pay for it.
Yeah. Only buy it once.
Big price, or if you go yourself and go and drive all these miles for to see it, for to find it, it maybe cost more.
This is very true. Very true. You guys are probably familiar with these. This is the we call them glider pilot knives. And they were worn by the DLV before the DLV became the NSFK. And you can tell which organization wore it by the stamping in the throat. I don't know whether you can see it here. I think there's a stamping there.
No, there is no stamp.
There may not be any stamp on this one then. That's possible too. Once in a while you see them. I'll see if I have another one where you can see the throat stamp. Let's see what this one. This is a nice one too. Beautiful leather on it and all. Yeah, I think we have a throat stamping. That looks like the DLV. And then it also has some personalization stamping or property stamping on it too. But these are great great pieces. They're very beautiful. They're elegant little things, you know, and they're beautifully made. Nickel silver fittings, and the swastika is actually a medallion on both sides. It's a medallion with enamel in it that was inserted into the center block, and then they have beautiful leather covering with a hanger and. They're nice. They're very nice daggers, and they're very interesting. This is an SMF example with a mint blade. It's hard to find mint blades on these too because the guys that carried them were mostly teenage boys, and they like to handle everything. You know, so you find one with a good blade. It's kind of a rare thing.
And this one is short and comfortable to handle it, comfortable to wear it, and they wear it a lot, and they wore mostly of them.
This is the latest form of NSFK pieces you see, and what they did here was kind of cheapen them up. Really, the grip is all made of metal, and the scabbard is made of metal, but they put this crinkle finish on it and then painted it to make it look like leather, and it's not. It's all metal, and the fittings are all aluminum throughout, but they're a great variation. They have a hanger, They even have aluminum inside of the hanger to keep it solid because they had trouble with these hangers breaking all the time. This one was made by Helbig. Helbig is normally the only producer you'll ever see with a crackle finish. Although I did once see a SMF piece, and the fittings were all aluminum, but they were different from the Helbig, so that existed also. Then you can get into RLBs. RLBs come in officer version and enlisted man version. This is the officer version, again with leather-covered scabbard and nickel fittings, a button in the grip. And it's hard to find one of these where the enamel is still intact in the swastika, because this was the area that protruded out the furthest and got hit whenever it was being worn. And they usually have pretty nice blades that are, yeah, that's a beauty. Really, really nice. And let's see who made that. Paul Weiersberg, a very quality producer. But these are very substantial daggers. The later ones that they made are a little bit different because they cheapened them like other things. And a good example of that is here. This is a second model, but if you'll notice, the fittings on the hilt are made out of aluminum. See that?
Yeah, white metal.
Light metal. And usually when you see them, the blades are by Ernst Witte.
Chronic?
Nothing wrong with the dagger, just as collectible as anything else. It's just a variation, you know. But only the hilt was aluminum. The scabbard was the standard nickel silver or nickel plated fittings. And then the tougher to find pieces like this. This is an RLB first model. And these were the earliest ones produced. They started making them in 1935. And they're very, very difficult to come by. And one of the reasons is that after the second model came out in 1938, I think it was, or 37, they just took the first model and put a center ramp on it and took the button out and put a second style button into it and turned it into a second model. So, and you see this a lot. And one of the ways you can tell whether the ramp is one of the ones that was put onto a first model is that the ramp will be magnetic, yet the other parts will not be. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, or you can see this on the screws, and the
screws
will be a little bit different.
You can see that, and you can also on the first models, most of them have Waffen amps on the crossguard end and on the scabbard throat. So if you see a second model with a Waffen amped crossguard and scabbard throat, you can be pretty sure that was converted. Yeah, there's all different ways to tell. I'm just trying to give you guys the basics, and Alex is making me get into complicated stuff here. But that's okay. I'm sure you don't mind. It's all fun. And then there's the enlisted man's versions of both types. This is the first model. And usually when you find the first model pieces, the fittings will be nice nickel and all. And the second models, they're the identical dagger, except the grip button is different. These are really nice pieces, both of them.
Hard to find.
Hard to find in that condition, yeah. And the hangers a lot of times are all worn out and all, because it was really a stupid design, this little tiny hanger holding this heavy nickel thing, you know. So that's some of that stuff. Is that maybe enough, or do you think they'd want to see more? It's probably enough, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for.
There's still a lot more to go.
Yeah.
but,
Thank you for watching. Thank you for.
I don't. This was supposed to be Christmas. I don't want to get into New Year's too, so we'll cut it off at this.
Yeah. And thank you for showing of all this stuff, and thank you for opening this door for our subscribers. Because before I was here.
It's always whenever I bring people down and I say, well, would you like to see my vault? And I open it up and they always,
yeah,
because it's hard to find that many daggers.
First time 5 years ago, it was the same reaction from me when I see it.
Yeah, everybody, because it's you just don't see this much stuff in one place. But I have to tell you though, I didn't start out to have all this stuff. I started out like everybody with a dozen daggers to sell, maybe 18 daggers, and then you start buying more, and what happens is you buy more than what you sell, and after 40 years goes by, this is the problem you're into. It gets to be a huge inventory, but it's a nice problem because I love my daggers, and the more I have, the better it is as far as I'm concerned, because you may not be able to sell a certain piece tomorrow, but surely you can sell it the next day if you really have to, you know. So it's money in the bank, and I can't stress more. A lot of collectors say, oh, I don't want to spend that money. I don't want to spend all that money. But you're not really spending money because you're investing in material goods. And let's face it, that you don't get any interest in a bank savings account. Whereas with these things, let's say you hold a dagger for 10 years, you're almost always going to make a pretty good profit. If you hold a dagger for 6 months, no, you're not going to make a profit. Because remember, the dealer you bought it from, he made a profit too, so it's very hard to, so you've got to think long term with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thomas, in the end of the video and in the end of the year, please tell us, how was your year? How was results? Is it good year for you or bad? How?
Well, I think most of you would think that with this COVID plague on everything, you know what's happened to many businesses and restaurants, and they just did very poorly. A lot of them went out of business. The dagger business has never been better this year, and it started right after the COVID. To me, it feels like the old days. It feels like we're back in the 90s again, with people, phone ringing all day long and people buying things like crazy. And I try to think, well, why is that? And I think a lot of it, people have been sitting home with nothing to do, so maybe they're looking at the internet and the websites more than they would
YouTube, for example.
Yeah, I like that. And also, maybe they don't have many places to spend their money. You can't spend $200 or $300 in a restaurant because there aren't any restaurants open. So maybe you have a little more money than you would have ordinarily. But then also something that I think is very important. My friend Alex, that's taking the video now from Russia, and myself, we have worked very hard in the last year promoting our hobby through YouTube videos. And these videos, they go all over the world. And it's just amazing the amount of people that look at these things. And there is not a day that goes by that someone doesn't email me and say, oh, I stumbled on one of your video programs and it got me interested in these German daggers, and I'd like to start out and buy an SA dagger. I mean, when that happens, that really makes you feel good inside, because Alex and I, we know it's a great hobby, and we know it's a lot of fun. But unless you know about this hobby, there's no way you're going to find out about it under normal circumstances. Who even knows that the Germans wore daggers? You know, nobody knows that unless you really are into this. So these videos have done a great service to the collecting community, and I know that the new people that are coming into it are really going to find it enjoyable too. It's great. If you like history at all, there's nothing that lives history like these things. I mean, yeah, a lot of it was bad history, but it's still history. The quality of the products was just unbelievably excellent. The designs are very, very beautiful. They're just great things to collect, and it can add a lot to your pleasure in life. It has to mine, and it has to Alex's, and I've been doing it for over 45 years, and I never get tired of it, and you won't either.
Yeah, me too. And it's, in my opinion, it's very important to show all these small things on daggers, on the swords, and on all the stuff. I mean, maker marks and marks of originality. All this stuff to save money of collectors, because a lot of fakes, a lot of repaired daggers we see on the market, and only one thing can make you happy with your collection if your collection is full original. And there is no fakes inside or something like that.
Well,
and that's important to.
It's very important. I bought a lot of collections over the years, and I honestly have to say, no matter how sophisticated the collector is, he may have 40 pieces, but I'll bet when you go to look at them, there'll be 2 or 3 of them that aren't original. It just and when that happens to you, you can't just give up. You've got to just put it aside, put it in the closet, learn from your mistake, and go on. Because I've been doing this all these years, and I have a closet full of mistakes. You just learn from it and don't do it again. You know?
And that's better to learn with others' mistakes. So, and we can show all this.
It's much cheaper.
Yes, it's much cheaper and much smarter.
Much smarter, yeah.
Thank you.
Let all the other guys make the mistakes. You guys buy the books, watch the videos, call us, email us about questions, and we'll be happy to help you if we can. Because we know that if you know that you're buying a good dagger, you're a happy man. You're not afraid to pay the money. You're not shaking hands, because you know you're buying something that's original. Very important.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Thomas, for show us your safe. Thank you, Thomas, for show us your business and your hobby, and for all these videos we filmed together.
Yeah, we've done quite a few now, haven't we? Yeah.
And this is the last video in this year, last Our Together video in this year, because yes, I have to back to Russia and finish my work with book and catalog. I take pictures of all stuff I bought here, and for collectors too, and Russian community, more open for the world community, for the world collectors and
world collecting community.
Yes, and we take pictures, and it will be huge.
Educational. It'll be very good.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
That's great.
So, in the finish, Merry Christmas, guys. Happy New Year. And we finish this video. And if you like it, comment it and say us something. We every time read your comments. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. And I'll see everybody next year.
Okay. See you next year.
Yes.